I'm Steph. Thanks for being here. We've got Mandy today. I'm going to intro her. She's going to teach us all about activator poles and the difference between urban polling, probably. And we're going to do some exercise with her. Thank you for being here. A little bit about Mandy, occupational therapist and gerontologist. Mandy Shintani from Urban Polling joins PD Connect to discuss the research on how adding evidence-based specialized walking poles can improve balance, posture, core strength, and increase confidence for walking and performing standing exercises. So today you're going to join us and to find out how the evidence-based activator poles can turn your walks into a fun and full body exercise to build strength and demonstrate how to enhance larger movements and increase the enjoyment of performing standing exercises. Learn how to get started with walking poles. People with Parkinson's, care partners, and everyone else can join us. All right. Thank you so much. It looks like I'm adding myself, but really Lisa's sneaking in here. Hey, Mandy, thanks for being here. All right. Uh-oh, Mandy, you're muted. I think I muted you on accident.
Oh, no worries. Thanks so much, Steph, for that intro, and great to work with you and Lisa again. I think we met down in San Luis Obispo a few years ago, actually 3 years ago. And yeah, happy to do this webinar. So I will just move you guys over into our PowerPoint. So I'm going to do a combination of using the PowerPoint and then just demoing. If you can't hear me for any reason when I go back into the back of the room, please, put your thumbs down or something, or just let Lisa know, and I'll speak a little bit louder. So today, activator walking poles for improving walking ability, enhancing movement for standing exercises. So again, thank you so much to PD Connect. And just want to say, as an occupational therapist and gerontologist, I am passionate about teaching new strategies for people with Parkinson's, so they can remain as independent as possible, active within their community, improve their functional ability. And my hope is today, I know a lot of you actually already do use walking poles, and actually maybe just put up your hand if you already are familiar with walking poles. Okay, as I can see, there's quite a few of you that are already familiar. Okay, perfect. Oh, excellent. Some people are showing them to me in the video. Okay, perfect. So, because normally what I would say is that, my hope is that you're going to walk away with a new tool. For you guys, hopefully that you're going to walk away with more information on a new tool to the United States. We've been using it here in Canada for the last 17 years. It is best practices here for Parkinson's rehab and wellness programs. But I know that the concept is fairly new to the United States. Lisa and Steph have been real pioneers with being one of the first groups to show the poles in the United States. But as I mentioned, we've been doing it for quite a long time. Just to give you a little bit of a background, it was introduced to me by my Swedish neighbor. I think we can agree that the Swedes represent some of the healthiest people on the planet, particularly their older adults. But however, just so you know, in Sweden, the use of walking poles, or the generic name is Nordic walking, is used by people of all different ages. Preschoolers learn it, working moms. It's part of their Olympic summer training program for the cross-country ski team, and it's also used by older adults. And of course, when I mean by Nordic walking, I mean using it anywhere, just out sidewalks, parks. You can use it for hiking, and I can go over that if you want as well, or you can use it inside. So it is very evidence-based. If you were to go on PubMed right now, our resource for really good quality, peer-reviewed, independent studies, you'd find there are actually 360 studies on the use of walking poles or Nordic walking. And every week that goes by and I go back onto PubMed, there are more studies, because there's so much interest in this activity right now for using it for rehab and for wellness. There are 18 studies on Parkinson's, so it's very well researched in terms of Parkinson's. And what I got really excited about as a therapist was when I looked at the research, I was like, oh my goodness, this targeted the main key goals that we're trying to achieve for rehab for people with Parkinson's. So as you guys already know, you've got the, the support, bilateral support. So 4 points of contact. So, automatically people feel more confident because they've got that balance. When you push down on this ledge, of course, that puts you more in an upright posture. It improves every aspect of your walking ability. You walk faster, you take a bigger stride. It's all about larger movements right now. And it also helps to normalize the way that you walk. Now, why is that important? Well, what the research shows is that the more you can maintain a normal walking pattern, and I'll describe this more later on, the less likely that you're at risk for falls. And also, that ledge, when you push down on that ledge, it also pushes you forward. And what people find is that you get into a nice fluid movement, more coordination, less freezing. Okay, so 17 years ago, then we looked at poles from all over the world, and we looked at, okay, well, how do you modify the design so that it is more effective and safer for people who have issues with balance, like those with Parkinson's. And now we do have 18 studies on the activator poles themselves. Of course, I've talked to you a lot about what makes me really excited as a therapist, but of course, what really matters is what are your key goals and that you could possibly achieve with using walking poles. And so these are just, what I've collected over the years. People have told me their number one goal is they want to feel more confident walking. They want to be active outside. They want to be still socializing the community, particularly right now with the pandemic, with walking being, one of the few recognized or recommended activities. And of course, what the research shows is when you exercise outside, that, your mood is even more enhanced and people have better outcomes with exercising outside versus inside. People still want to be able to be independent in traveling. And I mean, like, not even just traveling in terms of taking holidays, but I think just traveling around their local community, maybe using public transit, just visiting with friends and family. They want to have less fear of falling. People have told me they want to feel motivated, invigorated, inspired to be active, empowered, and they want to know that the program is cutting edge. And what I found for people with Parkinson's more than any other condition is people want to know that it's evidence-based, specific to Parkinson's. And they want to know that it's leading edge. I found people with Parkinson's seem to be more educated, and they seem to be more they do a lot more investigating, I find, into programs that they feel are specific to their condition. So just to give you some testimonials that I think kind of speak to the goals that people want to achieve. This is Larry Guilford. He has a podcast with Parkinson's Canada. It's called When Life Gives You Parkinson's. I personally think this podcast is excellent. He's also the host of the Michael J. Fox podcast, which you might be more familiar with. And Larry does it with his wife, and he really spends a lot of time looking at researching items, trying them out himself, and then he tells them his wife is there, and she always tells it from the perspective of the caregiver. I can certainly send that link over to Steph if people are interested. But Larry was in a situation where he was falling quite frequently, and then he did a podcast on strategies for reducing falls. He tried out the activator poles, and this is what he said.
The activator poles should be called confidence poles.
I love that.
Because it really is for at least for me, it's what gives me the confidence to go into a crowd, to go through an airport, to go on a hike, to take a longer walk. Like it gives me enough certainty to say yes. So thank you for making them.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, so that was just a clip from Larry. And I just want to quickly show you what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the benefits or do an introduction. I'm going to try to be very brief, but I will go through some of the research related to the use of walking poles. Then I'm just going to, Lisa asked me to keep it really practical. So I'm just going to quickly review the technique and for the activator technique. So this is the technique you would use more for balance. It's also the technique that we use here in Canada for offloading if you've got painful hip and knees or pre and post hip and knee surgery. But for people with Parkinson's, I would say that this technique is best if balance is your main concern. You just want to be able to walk further with more confidence. Then I'm going to review with you the urban poling technique or the Nordic walking technique. This is really a fitness technique. This is for people more who've got mild symptoms. Maybe you're in the earlier stage when you really want to increase the intensity or the speed of your walking. I'm sure you guys are already familiar with the study that showed that optimal benefits come with people in the early stages if you can really increase your heart rate to that 80% maximum heart rate. So I'm going to show you how you can do the urban poling technique to really increase that intensity. Then I'm going to show you, sorry, it says seated and standing, but Lisa said you guys are doing more standing exercises. So I'm going to focus more on standing exercises. I'll show you why it's beneficial to use the poles, a summary, and then where you can get the poles, and then we'll open up for a Q&A. And okay, so let's go to the basics. How did it start off with? Like we say urban poling, that's how we've coined it here in Canada, but the generic name is Nordic walking. It's really your upper body doing a technique, looks somewhat similar to cross-country skiing. And maybe you guys don't do a lot of cross-country skiing in California, but here in Canada, it's quite popular. And what's interesting about cross-country skiing, though, is that it has one of the highest, or if not the highest, cardiovascular workout of any activity. So that's why there are so many health benefits associated with this activity, is because your upper body is doing a technique somewhat similar to cross-country. Your lower body, you're simply walking. So in the simplest terms, you're simply walking with poles. But what's really neat is, as I mentioned earlier, is that you're getting that aerobic workout, you're getting the balance. I'm going to show you how you're getting core strengthening all in one activity. So let's kind of take a look at what it looks like in action. Okay, so let's compare it to walking alone. When you're walking, you're primarily using your lower extremity muscles. However, when you use poles, you use 75 to 90% of your muscles. So one of the really cool things about it is that it's turning walking into a full body workout. And another benefit of that, particularly right now with COVID, is that a lot of people have gained weight. People have been more sedentary. And the bonus is that what the research shows is that on average, you burn about 20% more calories. However, some subjects in the study burn up to 46% more calories than walking alone. And it's highly effective for core strengthening. So when I say core strengthening, I'm really meaning, your muscles or your abdominal muscles or your stomach muscles. And I think a lot of people really understand like it's helpful for posture, for balance, but I'm just going to go into a little bit more depth about why it's really effective for core strengthening. And core strengthening is really key for first of all, your ability to walk improves if you've got better core strengthening. But it's also really important for your ability to transfer. So for example, to safely go from a sitting position to a standing position. Of course, that's important too, because that is sometimes where people may fall as well. Okay, so I'm going to do a demonstration. For any of you that have a pole there, can you just grab your right pole? And if you don't, just stand up with us anyway, and I'm going to get you to put your hand out and you're going to rest it on the back of a chair, or you can do it rest it on the desktop where your laptop is. Okay, so the way that I can get you to demonstrate core strengthening is put your hand out as if you're giving me a friendly handshake. Okay, now for you that have a pole, you're going to rest that friendly handshake on this ledge here. Okay, and just wrap your hand loosely, but the whole workout and the balance does come from you pushing down on that ledge. Then you're going to put one hand on your abs and you're going to push down on that ledge and feel your abs. If you don't have a ledge, just use the back of a chair or just put it on the table where your computer is. Okay, push down, and hopefully when you push down, can you feel a contraction happening here in your abs? If you can't, loosen up your grip and push down more with your whole upper body. Okay, not just with your wrists, with your upper body. Give me a thumbs up if you can feel that. Did you guys feel contraction? Great. Okay, remember I talked about that full body workout? Let's have you press down again, but push down on the ledge and put one hand on your pecs. And feel the contraction there. Put one on your lats, hand on your lats. Now put it on your spine erector muscles in your back. And now feel the muscles contract in your arm. Okay, so that's the whole idea, is that every time you take a step forward, you're actually going to push down on that ledge. And that's what's going to cause all these contractions in 75 to 90% of your body. And one of the things that's really neat too is that for, right now, particularly during COVID, a lot of us have been sitting a lot. A lot of us do sit a lot to look at our screens, and it's caused a lot of back and shoulder issues. So it's really great in terms of, as I mentioned before, really targeting your back muscles, and you're going to get a lot of shoulder movement. Okay, so what does that translate in? Let's say you guys as a group just went and did 1 mile, okay? That would mean that you would get 1,800 steps. That means you would exert 1,800 contractions of your abdominal muscles. Like, what a simple, easy way compared to for example, doing sit-ups to get those contractions of your abdominal muscles. And just like, let's say you do have some shoulder issues. I've had a frozen shoulder myself from being on the computer all day. That is 900 shoulder movements in 1 mile. Okay, so let's move into the research. As I mentioned earlier, 18 studies that have been done on Nordic walking and Parkinson's, and we've got 18 on the activators. But I'm just going to go through a few. So the most common study that I talk about is this one, because it had different control groups. Of course, it's called a randomized control study, which is recognized more than just when it's just done with one group. So this is one group that did walking, one group that did flexibility and balance exercises, and they had one group that did Nordic walking. And what they found is, of course, all those things are helpful. So reduce pain, improve balance, quality of life, if you do any of those, one of those 3 things. However, if you look at the group that used walking poles, they had improvements in the area, but they were also had better results for their posture. They'd had an increased step length or stride length, and improved gait. Well, that means walking pattern, and again, less walking variability. And just remember, I talked before, you want to have less variability in your walking, because that correlates with a lower risk for falls. And a lot of people just ask me, do the benefits last whether you're pulling or not? So to be honest, I haven't seen that in the research, but that being tested, but we do have a lot of testimonials from people saying that, like Bill here, he actually completed 23 half marathons. He had Parkinson's. He said, I noticed the benefits stayed with me for several hours after polling. This is a study done on mood and depression. So unfortunately, with any chronic condition or injury, it does affect our mood. And what they found is, compared to walking alone, walking is helpful, but when you use poles, you even have a greater mood, less fatigue, decreased depression and anger compared to walking alone. It's also used here in Canada as an option to canes. I also say it's a way to reduce or delay the use of walkers, and particularly because you guys have such great resources with, Lisa and staff to make sure you're doing that safely. I always say, if you're already using a walker, of course, you really do want to be assessed first by a rehab professional, a therapist, or your physician beforehand. But basically, the problems or the challenges, sorry, with using a walker is that, you know, you're bent over in a kyphotic or rounded or stooped posture. There's no arm swing. And also, if I had you stand up and lean on the desk as if you're leaning on a walker, you actually do relax your core muscles. That kind of goes against what we're trying to achieve in rehabilitation or wellness programs. And then I've got Brad Pitt here just to show you, of course, you know, you're leaning to one side with the cane. Your wrist is actually in a hyperextended position. That places the greatest amount of stress on your wrist. And of course, it changes your arm swing and it changes the way that you walk. Whereas when you're using poles, because you've got it on both sides of your body, it makes for a very symmetrical movement, and it makes for a nice flow as well, even arm swing as well. So here is H from Florida, just on his comments with using it compared to a cane.
Yeah, with the cane, it makes me lean to my right, and therefore I feel off balance, and so it's much slower moving. I don't feel the confidence to take off like I do with the poles. Once I have the poles in my hands, and it makes me stand straight up, and I just feel like I can't fall. I just have more balance. No fear of falling, so I can just take off. The first time I ever used these, Kathy and I went out for a walk, and we just couldn't believe the difference. She said right away, "Wow, look at you go!" And it wasn't that I was necessarily trying. I used to have a good walking speed before Parkinson's, but and that's what I've always strived for, but couldn't do with a cane or without any help. So as soon as I got the poles in my hands, it just came back, and I took off and was at least 2 to 3 times faster walking than with the cane. Just exciting to put them in my hands and start walking. Yeah.
Okay, so I've talked to you a lot about, you know, when it would be helpful, but I should just mention some of the contraindications. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're already using a walker or a cane, you should discuss that with Lisa and Steph first. And you may want to do it on a very gradual basis, or just use it when you are in a group exercise situation or for daily walking. You should also get assessed if you're at the mid to later stages of Parkinson's, or if you do have dyskinesia or ataxia. Those would be the main times when you really should have it assessed or do it under the direction of a rehab professional. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is come out of here and just show you how to do the activator technique. Okay, so just a few things between the activator technique. I'm just going to review the pole quickly. You do want to make sure that you are using the right pole for the right hand as determined by this R that's on top of the handle. This ledge always has to face outward because that's actually where you're going to rest your hand. And the whole idea is that we developed it so that you can push as much as you want, and it's going to keep your wrist in a neutral position, okay? Versus, remember I was talking about the cane, now it's in that hyperextended position, or sometimes poles with straps keep your wrist more in a extended position. But in this one, the whole idea behind it is that we developed it so it doesn't matter how much you push down, your wrist stays more in an ergonomic position. And just really quickly, I think you're already familiar, but just in case anyone's new with the poles, there's a white line that's at the bottom that matches with the holes on top. And then the button comes out. So I'm 5'4", and I've got the poles at hole number 8, because that keeps my wrist at a 90-degree angle. So just a reminder that I talked earlier about the fact that there are 2 different techniques, And what I'm going to show you first is the activator technique. Okay, so this is more for, often for people who are past the earlier stages. They want to use the poles more for balance. However, I'll just let you know that I find people who have Parkinson's often want to use both techniques, because sometimes at the beginning, when you first get started, you're a little bit more fatigued, and you can have more balance and stability with this technique. And then you get going and you want to go faster, and you go into the urban pulling or Nordic walking technique. And then by the end of the walk, maybe you're fatigued again and you want to slow down, you might want to go into the activator. So there's no kind of hard, fast rule that you only do one or the other. The other thing I'll just mention too, that if you're on a beach, like you saw H there, or I know in California, you guys have lots of nice ocean front there. If you're walking on sand, on gravel, if you're hiking with the poles, it's actually better to use the activator technique where you bend your elbow, because again, you just get more stability. So if the ground is a little bit uneven, you're always going to get more stability if you keep your elbows bent. Okay. The other thing about the activator technique is that your poles are actually going to be vertical. Okay. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit more so you can see my feet a bit more here. Okay. So in the activator technique, it's the same movement as regular walking. It's opposite arm and leg, but I'm actually lifting and planting the pole to my front foot. The reason why I suggest that is if you lift and plant your pole, first of all, you get a lot more shoulder movement. And also it helps you to keep your pole more vertical. Okay, so you lift and plant the front foot. I find the biggest mistake that people make is I'll say, bend your elbows, and people will do this. They'll keep the poles beside their body, but then you don't get all this amazing shoulder movement, and you don't keep your poles vertical. Okay. And what the research shows is the more your poles are vertical, the more stability that you get. Okay. So that's why it's helpful to, as I said, lift and plant it to that opposite foot. Okay. So that is the activator technique. I just want to let you know, if you go to our website and you want to see a video, you can, under getting started, you can see the activator technique as well on how to adjust it. Just a little bit about the design. A lot of people ask us why we didn't put a strap with our pole. So we built the ledge instead of a strap. And the reason why is that I just found, as an occupational therapist, the strap was challenging, a little finicky for people to get their hand in there. As I mentioned, your wrist is in a slightly extended position, but also there's a study that was done by Dr. Knobloch in Germany, one of the biggest studies on Nordic walking injuries. And what he found is that, first of all, that the activity is safe for the general public, but of course, when you've got any chronic condition that affects your balance, you're at a higher risk for falls. But the falls are related to when the pole gets caught, or the person stumbles there and they're strapped into the pole and they go down with it. So the most common injury here is called the skier's thumb injury, which you can see here. Okay, so I think we already went through this technique. And as I mentioned, if you go to our website, urbanpulling.com, under getting started, look up activator, you can see lots of videos there too. And let's just take a look at what it looks like in action. You can see she's got her elbows bent. The pole is vertical. But also, I just wanted to show you the difference in the walking pattern, what I'm hoping that you'll achieve. You can see here that there was very little arm swing. So you can see how the poles force you to have big arm swing. She's looking down. The goal is that because you've got that bilateral support on both sides of your body, hopefully what we want to do is get you to lift up your head a little bit more, because when you're looking down, your balance skills can't work as well. Hopefully you also look at the difference here in her leg stride or her step, right? Just look how small it is, that small shuffling movements, but look at the difference right here. Wow. That's quite a difference in terms of just making your movements bigger. And on that note, I'm just going to tell you a tip. One of the things I really like about using the poles is that it really helps to teach you how to walk more normally, whether you're using them or not. Like, use it to understand how it feels to really swing your arms and take a longer step. And the other thing is, I think is incredibly important, is lift up your knees and clear the ground. Like, one of the things I first noticed, and I got so excited about because I am an OT and we're obsessed about falls, is that people actually started lifting up their knee and clearing the ground. And the reason that's so important is, one of the main reasons why people fall is because they start doing a shuffling walking pattern, right? That you see can be part of Parkinson's as well. And the reason why people shuffle is they're trying to get more contact with the ground because they don't feel like they've got good balance, and it's just part of the condition. But if you learn to lift up your feet aren't going to get caught on cracks in the sidewalks or changing in the flooring, right? So one of the reasons why people fall in the middle of the night is that, of course, they're more fatigued. They don't lift up their feet. They don't bend their knees, and they trip on the change in the flooring. So try to use the poles to help you to improve your overall walking pattern, whether you're using them or not. Okay, so now I want to show you the urban polling technique. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly review with you about the urban polling technique or Nordic walking that's more for fitness. And again, I had mentioned earlier that study where it's, if you're in the early stages, you get optimal benefits working 80% of your maximum heart rate. So this one I think is a really good technique if you don't use a cane, you don't need to use a cane, you're an independent walker, you're in the earlier stages, and you really want to bring your walking up to a higher intensity, or brisk walking or power walking. Okay, if you've already got the activator poles, one thing you can do is you can just pull out the base. And by the way, underneath there is a carbide steel tip that you would use for on the beach or trails. And you can just plunk on a boot-shaped tip. The boot-shaped tip should always be facing backwards, because the whole idea is that it catches the ground, it catches the asphalt, holds it there, and it rolls you forward for that increased speed. Now, I'm actually going to increase the length of the activator poles by 2 notches because I'm going to be swinging my arms out way further. Okay. However, if you've got the urban poles or any with a turning lock system, usually the heights are already listed on the bottom part of the pole, and they also come with the boot-shaped tip. So this is the urban poles, and you can see the height of the poles are already there in feet and inches. Okay, and it's by a turning lock system, so you will need to give a lot of I really had to tug on that, the lower section, in the direction of unlock, and then you adjust it to 5'4", and then I would turn it in the direction of lock according to the symbols here. But I'm just going to use my activator poles to show you. Okay, so in the urban polling technique, quick review, you want to have your tips facing backwards. Okay, and I find the easiest way to learn is drop your arms. So if you want to do it along with me, just drop your arms right now. You can just mimic this if you don't have poles. Can you just drag your poles as if they're not even in your hand? Just drag them. That's it. And the benefit of just dragging them is, look at this. My arms are straight. My pole is now in a diagonal, exactly the position I want it to be in. And I'm already doing it opposite arm and leg. Now, you will have to kind of remind yourself to, swing your arms. Sometimes I find when I say drag the poles, if they're not in your arms, people don't move their arms, but swing your arms like you normally would. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring it up higher to a handshake position. And then you're going to push down on the ledge. Okay. And then I'm going to push, 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 push down on that ledge as I swing my arms back. Okay. So that's a very quick review of the urban pulling technique. But I think the most helpful thing to say is start off by just dragging, pretend they're not even in your hands, but keep swinging your arms as you normally do. And then just keep gradually bringing them up a little higher, and then push down on that ledge. Here's what it looks like. I'm just going to advance this so you see a side view. See, so you can see straight arm, pulls diagonal, and look at that leg stride, the arm swing they're getting, which is, you know, just amazing in terms of making a movement bigger for walking, but also you can see how fast these ladies are going too. I'm just going to move this ahead, just looking at the time so we can do some standing exercises. As I mentioned earlier, if you're going to use it in sand, I don't think you guys get much snow, but if you're up in the mountains, or gravel for hiking, remember, take off the tip and use that carbide steel tip underneath. That's going to give you more stability. And again, go back to the activator technique. Bend your arms, keep the pole straight whenever you're in terrain that is a little bit slippery. Okay, now I'm going to show you standing exercises. Now, why would you use poles for standing exercises? Very similar to why you would use it for walking. Again, if you're doing standing exercises, you know, you have the support. Again, you've got 4 points of contact for your standing. You can increase your confidence. So for example, if you have poles right now, just do something like stand on one foot. And you can see the difference compared to just, you know, standing on without the poles. When you push down on that ledge, again, you're going to get a nice upright posture. So really helps you hold the posture. For a lot of people with Parkinson's and a lot of neurological conditions, there's often a weaker side. And what's really great about using the poles for standing exercises, it gives your brain so much cueing to that weaker side. You can feel it in your hand. You can see it. You can hear it. And it gives you an idea of what we call proprioceptive cueing. It helps you to sort of give your brain more information about where that extremity or that arm is in space. So I'm just going to change the height of the poles back to when I had it at my elbow being at a 90 degree. I'm going to put the bell-shaped tips back on because I find you just get a bit more stability. And hopefully what you'll find with the standing exercises as well is that it makes it more fun. It makes you can do a lot of functional movements with it. So I'm just going to show you some exercises. Do along with me. First of all, let's just get nice posture. So let's be relaxed. And I'm a stupor. Now I'm going to push down on the ledges and rib cage up. And let's get into a nice standing posture. That's it. That's it. That looks good. And why don't we just try to bring the poles out further? If you haven't got good balance, bring the poles out further. Okay. If your balance is okay, you can bring them out this far apart. And why don't we just try to do some weight shifting? That's it. Let's just shift our weight back and forth. Good. Why don't we do a little bit of a bump here? Can you get out and bump to the side? That's it. That's it. And again, push down for nice posture. Okay, let's do let's do one movement as well, where you are holding on to the poles. And what I'm going to have you do is take the pole, bring it up to the ceiling if you can, and can you hold yourself on one foot? That's it. And the other side. So look how much further you're going to get than if I had said to you, stand on one foot, lean to one side, and reach up to the ceiling. Okay. So I just want to show you the amount of range and confidence that you can get. How about we do one just leaning side to side? That's it. Again, your weight shifting to the side. Hopefully what you can see is you're going to get a lot more range with the stability on each side. Okay, bring your poles in. I'd like you to do a pole dancing move with me. Can you pretend you've got a hula hoop? That's it. Let's get you do some pole dancing in this webinar. And how about in the other side? So you're just bringing your hips in a nice big circle. That's it. That's it. And we're going to do this exercise called in. So step with me, step, step, and then step out, out, out. In, out, out. In, out, out. In, out, out. Excellent. This time, can you take the poles along with us? So we'll go in, and then bring the pole out with you. Out, in, out, out. In, out, in, out, out. Excellent. We're going to get you to do one more dance step with me with the Charleston. So we're going to have you step forward, and then step back, back, forward, forward, back, back. That's it. Step forward, forward, back, back. That's it. That's it. You're doing the, okay, so step forward, forward, back, back. That's it. And again, push down on that ledge so you got nice posture. Hopefully having the poles allows you to do your standing exercises with a bit more stability in any place in your home as well. And I'm just going to show you how you can take a simple exercise and progress it. So can you stand on one foot? That's it. Now, can you put your hands on top of the poles? So we're just going to show you how you can challenge yourself. And again, only do what you feel comfortable with. Now, could you lift up the pole that is opposite to the foot that you're lifting up? That's it. That's it. Hold it up. Good. And down. And now, can you challenge yourself more by lifting up your hand, same foot that you've got up? That's it. That's it. And down. And now, can you bring both poles up? Okay. So that's just how you could take any simple exercise that you're doing and make it a bit challenging by, again, you're using the poles for less balance if you put your hands on top. Sometimes you will use 2 fingers, and then you can do one pole, other pole, both poles. And that's how you can just add a little bit of variety into the exercise as well. Okay. Here's just some more examples. These are kind of more high intensity standing exercises that one of the physiotherapists sent to me. This is just a group exercise program here in North Vancouver.
One more. Change the direction. Have those heels popping up and down. Fits in with the class. That's right. How are you feeling, everybody? So good. Up on those toes. Beautiful job. You guys are fabulous. Eyes are up. Good to go. Excellent, everybody.
Okay, so that pretty much brings my webinar to conclusion. Again, just a reminder that you can see more information about the research, those videos on our website. I had mentioned this that I would offer you guys. We do have a coupon code on our website. It's urbanpolling.com, where you can get 10% off And if you use the code UP 2022, there's also free shipping. The other option is the poles are available as well on Amazon. Okay. So in summary, I just talked to you guys about the fact that this is an evidence-based research tool. There's 360 studies on Nordic walking on PubMed. There's 18 on using walking poles with Parkinson's, and there's 18 on our activator poles. So again, remember, use the activator technique when you want balance. You just want to do it for general walking. You could use the urban poling technique in the early stages when you want to do more fitness walking. Or as I said, you can interchange. Even in one session, you may find both are helpful. And of course, if you're hiking or on the beach, I would suggest go back to the activator technique. And then you can use the poles for exercises for improving posture, balance, bigger movements, and support. So right now, I'd like to just open it up to see if anyone has any questions.
You guys can go ahead and unmute and ask questions, or you can write them in the chat if you have any.
So I've tried dragging the pole technique,
Mm-hmm.
but I get off balance. It's not that I get off balance, but you know, end up doing the same arm, same leg, and then I have to step. So I figured I'm doing something wrong.
No, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to stop this for a sec so I can see. Hey, that's a great question. No, you're not doing anything wrong. One of the things that is a bit of a challenge is, like I say, it's opposite arm and leg, but I find sometimes it's better not to know that, because the way that we walk is opposite arm and leg. But when you start thinking about that, what I find is that people start doing same leg and same arm. So my advice would be to you is just keep going, because your brain is at some point just going to take over, and they're going to do it. They're going to flip you into the right pattern. It's only because you're really thinking about it that it makes polling with another person, because they get distracted and their body just takes over and they do opposite arm and leg. Don't worry about that. It will come. And yeah, so I think hopefully that would help you out, is just keep going. And that part is not, shouldn't be an issue.
Can I throw out another question, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a pavement, a walking pavement, and it runs beside our community garden. So I understand I need to use the nub when on the pavement, but if I start walking through the community garden, do I need to switch to the boot?
Oh, okay.
We're getting
Well,
ready to
great
hit a muddy
question.
season. Well, we're getting ready to hit our rainy season when it'll be muddy. And so I was
Mhm.
wondering
Yeah.
what's the best
Mm.
tip?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, if it was just a short, small area, like I would only switch the tips if I was going to be on uneven terrain for a while. So as long as you're cognizant, hey, I'm going to go on this different terrain, it's going to be a little bit slippery. Maybe I just bend my elbows a bit more right now. Maybe I just bring my poles up, make them a little bit straighter until I get through this area. I would just keep on the same tips. Otherwise, it's kind of a hassle to go between the two, you know what I mean? Putting them on and off. I would only change them if, for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're actually going to be on uneven terrain. Then it might be worthwhile to switch over. And also, it kind of just depends too. Like for some people, just making the poles like a little bit more vertical, bending your elbows is enough. It sort of just depends on the person, because for some people, they don't even need to change their technique because they've got really good balance and they can still on some, uneven terrain. They're okay with the urban poling technique. So it depends on the individual, and I would say it depends on how long you're going to be poling on that uneven terrain.
Thank you.
Mandy, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Could you just show the hand grip? Because you said something about the ledge to the outside, and I wasn't sure what that meant.
Oh, okay. So here is the ledge right here, right?
Yeah.
Your hand always should be resting on that ledge. Like I've seen people use the poles. Let me just show you, Steve. And then they've got, see the ledge to the inside and they're holding on to it, but there's nowhere for them to rest their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you always want to make sure that the ledge is facing outward. And also you're using the right pole for the right hand, because it just ergonomically should fit your hand better as well.
So
Okay.
the R is forward.
The R is actually, yeah, like the R, when you say it's forward, the R should look the way that, like if the R is upside down, that's wrong. So you're right. The R is kind of forward. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it for sure.
All right, I've got it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. But great question.
Any other questions here?
Your left side has
Okay, Alice, take a breath. Let's say it loud.
the right, the left side, left pole has a left word there.
About the,
The left pole has a left, has an L word on top of it.
yes, the
Alice.
left. Yes, good question, Alice. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mandy.
Absolutely. Alice, I think it's hard for me to show you, but there's an L for the left hand and there's an R for the right hand. And yep, good question. Same thing. Just make sure with the left one, the ledge is facing outward and you can rest your hand on that ledge.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Charlene. When I'm a fairly new user of the poles, and I did fall one time, and I think I may have tripped over. My left foot may have caught.
Oh
and tripped.
no.
So it makes me a bit fearful when I go out again.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
your predictions about that?
So can I ask you, Shirley, did you, are you using the poles in a group with Steph and Lisa, or are you using it on your own?
I'm using it on my own, although the time I fell, I was walking with a friend, and I think I got crowded on the trail. That
Oh,
contributed
okay.
to it.
Yeah. If you are with a friend, like sometimes I find it might be better to learn the technique first and then do it with like friends and family, because if you are, you know what I mean, sometimes when you're talking, you get a bit distracted and you're trying to, you know what I mean, it's a new technique and you're not as aware of where the poles are compared to when you're just doing it on your own. If you do have, like, can I ask you, Charlotte, do you have any dyskinesia or ataxia or really limited coordination when, or is your coordination affected?
Not much. Maybe a little bit of dyskinesia, but usually if I'm just standing still brushing my teeth. And I'm not sure what ataxia is. What is that?
Okay, very similar. Yeah, sorry, I should just say dyskinesia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, dyskinesia can make you, it can be a contraindication for using the pole. So that's why I would say, if you can do it with Lisa or Steph, have them take a look at that. Is there any way, Charlotte, that you can just show me right now through the video you using it? Do you want to do that?
I don't think my camera will pick up on the show
Yeah. Okay.
but I think your idea of walking alone I can do, and just practicing that, and your other tips I think will be helpful too.
Well, one thing too, sorry, and do you use the activator technique, or do you use like the Nordic walking technique, or do you use the activator?
I use the activator.
You do? Okay. Yeah, I guess, yeah, do it, yeah, more on your own and try to get it really, just get, yeah, more familiar of where you're placing it. Now, one thing that you could do too is maybe, like sometimes I find that sometimes when people are using it, they'll keep the poles really close to their body. Charlotte, maybe consider bringing them out a little bit further. Okay. So do you know what I mean? Like sometimes when people are using them, they'll keep them really close. And I think when they do that, you're more likely to trip over them too. If you bring the poles out a little bit further and use it, you're less likely. See how my poles are never in the way of my feet? If you can see that, because I've got them out a little bit further. Whereas if I keep them in, like sometimes that's the problem I say when I say bend your elbows, right? People tend to lock their arms beside their body and they kind of walk like this, and then the poles are really close to your feet too, right? Whereas the pole should be, you're lifting and planting it to that other foot, and it should be wide enough out that it's not anywhere near my feet for me to trip on them. And I get a bit more stability if I keep them out wider, okay? So remember, just remember, lift and plant that pole to that opposite foot. Bring them out a little bit further to give you more stability, particularly because you've got that dyskinesia. And then you're less likely as well to have it in the way of your walking pattern. Or walking path, sorry.
That's very helpful. I think that is exactly what I've been doing wrong.
Okay, well, let me know how it goes too.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, these are great questions.
I have one more, if I may.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please go ahead.
So we're going to fly back home soon. Sorry, we're going cross country. Do you check these, or can you take them on board? And do you have to keep them in a box, or I mean, what is your experience with flying with them?
Okay, well, great question. You know, in the 17 years we've been doing this, we've never had somebody had them taken away if you walk with them through security, like as if, and you let them know I'm using this for balance.
Wow.
If you carry them, they will take them away from you, is what we found, particularly if you've got them collapsed and you're just carrying them. They'll definitely make you check them in. But if you use them and you're actively using them and you tell them you're using it instead of a cane or you know, or a walker, as I said, we haven't so far. If that ever happens, you can email me and I will fix that for you if they did take them away from you. But we haven't had an issue. Now, if you're really worried, of course, you don't want to take that chance, then I would say a couple things. One of them is that you can actually collapse the pole, put them on a diagonal in your suitcase. If you want to make them even shorter, you can just pull the poles apart. Okay, and then you can also, I'll even sometimes pull off this and it just makes the height a little bit shorter as well, and put that on a diagonal. Now that, you know, won't always fit into a small suitcase, so you'd have to trial that first, but should fit into any mid-size. The other thing is, I don't know if you guys have seen this, sorry, I'm just grabbing but we did create this new pole called the Activator 2. And then one of the reasons why we created it is because a lot of people, you know, do travel with our poles. And it is, so I'm trying to get it so that it can, it does collapse 20% shorter because it's a 3-sectional pole, okay? So it's got both a flip lock and a button lock system, and there's 3 sections to it, but the advantage is that this can go down to 25 inches. There's 3 sections to it.
Do you collapse them when you're on the plane and slide them under your seat, or do you put them in the overhead?
Usually what I guess you could do both. You could, yeah, I think people just do both. You could, I mean, I don't know if this one's still 29 inches. So I don't know how, I think that might be hard to still put it under your seat. In fact, you know what? I think you'd probably trip on that. So I think you'd probably be better to put it up in the
overhead compartment.
In the upside compartment, except for if, of course, if you needed it to, you know, get to the bathroom, etc. But yeah, you know, having thought about that, I think for most people, you'd be better to pack it because I think that would stick out and you're going to trip yourself or trip someone else.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mandy. I think packing the poles would be the best option. The hardest part, I like the Activator 2 because it does get a lot smaller. But knowing, you know, it's obviously good question, Barb. Knowing you, I think packing them would be the best option so that you don't have to struggle with them through security. You know, going through security, just like Mandy said, if you're using the poles, that's one thing, but I feel like a majority of you may not want to use these through security. So you might want to consider packing those, because that makes it pretty tricky. I mean, you're thinking about your wallet, your phone, your poles, your shoes, or maybe you don't have to take off your shoes anymore. So it really just depends, you know, how much stress you want. If you're relying on these poles to get you through that airport, that's a different story. But consider that before you get there.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great point, Steph. Like a lot of the groups I talk to, people are just, they need it to get through the airport. Like
Sure.
Larry, you know, who had mentioned before he uses in the airport, well, he actually needs them to
Right.
ambulate through the airport.
Yeah, and several of our people might need that extra support, but I think if you know you're someone who can walk through the airport without activator poles, I say pack them.
Okay, that's good advice.
I would just add a comment here. This is Jim Derrich, Barbara Derrich's husband, and we've done both domestic and international flights. And what has been most helpful for us in the last 2 years is requesting wheelchair assistance from the door of the terminal to actual boarding. And then you're not having to deal with the poles or a walker or anything like that. And all of the airlines have been very helpful in providing that service. And it's a breeze getting through the airports with that assistance.
Yeah, that's great advice.
That's really good advice.
Anything that makes it easier to get through an airport, right?
Exactly.
Yes, the people helping you with the wheelchair know the ins and outs, and they'll get you through security and through customs real quick.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great idea.
Right.
Yeah. Any other last comments?
What is the difference between the urban pole and the elevator pole?
What's the difference between the urban poles and the activator poles?
Okay, well, great question. So the urban pole is, it looks like this. It comes with a boot-shaped tip. It is meant for a more active walker, and it has a twist lock system, which I'm actually not exaggerating. It is quite tight. Like, so with the twist lock system, you need to have force. You have to have good grip strength, and you have to have good force to unlock it and to lock it. It also only holds 90 pounds of direct pressure, whereas the activator pole, we developed it so that this button lock system will hold. It's not based on your grip strength. It's just based on whether you've got the button fully out. And it holds up to 200 pounds per pole. But I think the most important thing is that it's not, it's not based on your grip strength for how secure it is. For this one, if you don't secure it tightly, the pole is going to slide. So it is a little bit lighter, but to be honest, what we did was with the activator pole, it doesn't matter, whether you're in the early stages, the later stages, you can still use it for both. You can just put that boot-shaped tip on it. And then when you're feeling, not as stable, you can use this bell-shaped tip. So the whole idea is that we developed it so you don't have to keep changing poles depending on what your needs are. Sometimes people have the flu or they're post-surgery. They just like more of the stability of the bell-shaped tip. So, yeah, I mean, there's more, I guess, color selection with the other one, but for most people with Parkinson's, we're saying get the activator and just change the tips. But if you're someone there who's got mild symptoms and you want to pull, it's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit cheaper as well. Then the Urban Pole Series 300 is an option, or we've got a pink pole as well.
Thank you, Mandy. We appreciate it. Oh, go ahead, Alice.
Yes, I want to know if I want to walk in the indoor the carpet. Do I need to change the tip? Do I need to change the tip to the carpet? And
changing the tips for the carpet.
Oh.
Alice, for you, I think the best idea would be the bell tips. I think for stability, the bell tips are the best option for you, and I can help you with that also. But yeah, that's a really good question. I think for what you've got going on, the bell tips are the best support you could use. Okay.
Alice, anytime you're inside, I would use the bell-shaped tip just because the other one can slip inside. It's meant for asphalt. And this will actually slide inside your house. So great question, Alice. Inside, I would always use the bell tip.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mandy, for your time. This has been great. All the tips, whether it's the bell tip or the booty tip, but also the tips with using the poles and all the research. It's really helpful to hear the research that's behind it. What an incredible thing that you've created. And it's so nice for you to spend your time with us here today. Thank you so much. We
That was
took you
really
over
helpful.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well,
Thank
that
you,
was
Mandy, so
wonderful.
much.
Thank you so much, everyone. You guys are a great group, and I really
Have a
appreciate
great
this
afternoon.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Eva,
Have a
thank
great
you.
evening.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.